Let me tell you about a couple I've been thinking about lately. They're in their early 80s. They own a $500,000 home, free and clear. And for months, they've been arguing about what to do with it. Not because they don't love it, but because the home is consuming them. The expenses, the upkeep, the weight of it all. And here's what struck me about their story. They already know what they're going to do. They've agreed the survivor will rent after one of them is gone, but they haven't made that move together. Yet. I've watched this pattern for decades. People waiting for the house to force the decision, instead of making the decision while they still have a choice. That gap between what we know and what we do is what this conversation is really about. Because renting versus owning in retirement, it's not a math problem. It was never just a math problem. But here's what's changed. The forces shaping that decision are no longer just personal. Over the past 5 years, something structural has shifted in the North American housing market, and most retirees haven't been told about it clearly. Let me walk you through what I see. First, the numbers most retirement videos don't lead with. U.S. homeowners saw insurance premiums rise an average of 24% over just 3 years. In Florida, where a significant number of retirees live, premiums are running nearly 140% above the national average. Property taxes in high-demand markets are climbing faster than inflation, and maintenance costs on a home that's been lived in for decades? Experts suggest budgeting between 1% and 4% of the home's value annually. On a $450,000 home, that's up to $18,000 per year. Before anything catastrophic happens, a single HVAC replacement can exceed $7,000. A new roof can cost $15,000 or more. Add a foundation issue, a burst pipe, updated windows, and the paid-off home becomes something else entirely. It becomes a recurring financial obligation without a fixed ceiling. But that's not the part that caught my attention. Here's what I find more significant. In 2024, the U.S. homeownership rate declined for the first time in 8 years. Renter households surged by nearly 850,000 in a single year. More than 7 million Americans over 65 are now renters, and that number is accelerating, not slowing down. Now, some of that is preference, some of it is freedom, flexibility, a desire to simplify. Those are legitimate reasons, and I take them seriously. But some of it is not preference at all. One commenter said something that stayed with me. The alleged choice has more to do with unaffordability than any conscious decision people are able to make. That's not cynicism. That's an accurate description of the current market. Institutional investors have been acquiring residential real estate at scale. When large funds own the housing stock in a city, they are, in a very real sense, becoming the landlord of last resort. And when that happens, the rent versus own question changes shape entirely. It's no longer just about your spreadsheet. It's about who controls the supply of the alternative. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting. The people who navigate retirement housing best are rarely the ones who chose the optimal financial option. They're the ones who understood what they were actually buying. A 66-year-old woman in Florida owns a paid-off townhouse. Her combined costs, insurance, taxes, HOA, are still below local rent. She's already mapped her next move for when the stairs no longer work. An 80-year-old man spends $1,500 a month all in to stay in a home he loves. He's not optimizing for net worth. He's optimizing for quality of life. Both are right, not because the math says so, but because each of them understood exactly what they were choosing and why. That clarity is rarer than it sounds. So let me offer you a more honest framework than most of these conversations provide. The first question is not financial. It's this. Does this home still serve the life you're living now? Not the life you built here, not the memories, the life you're living today. Because there's a real difference between a home that gives you joy and a home that holds you in place because leaving feels like defeat. Selling a home you no longer need is not losing something. It's choosing something else. The second question is financial, but more specific than most people ask. What are your total carrying costs? Not just mortgage, not just taxes. Taxes, insurance, maintenance reserve, HOA if applicable, and the opportunity cost of equity sitting inside walls. Instead of generating income, you can actually spend. Compare that number honestly against what renting in your target market would cost. Not a national average, your market, your needs. The third question is the one almost nobody asks. What does this decision make possible or impossible? If owning your home requires you to spend your weekends managing it, funding it at the expense of what you actually came to retirement to do, that's a data point worth taking seriously. And here's the version of the question I find most clarifying. If you sold tomorrow, where would you go and what would become possible? If that answer excites you, something important is already telling you something. If that answer fills you with loss, that matters too. Both are real data. Neither one wins automatically. One more thing I want to say, because it doesn't get said enough. There is a third path that this conversation rarely names clearly. It's not renting. It's not staying in your current home. It's downsizing into ownership, a condo, a townhome, a smaller property. You keep the equity, you keep the stability, you keep the asset. But you shed the maintenance, the footprint, the physical weight. For many people, especially those living alone or in markets with volatile insurance costs, this middle path resolves the tension more cleanly than either extreme. It's worth running those numbers before you decide, because the real question was never rent or own. The real question has always been this: what does my housing choice make possible for the retirement I'm designing? That's the reframe, and the answer is yours to make.